Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. I had a little bit of a break last week because I was away and just getting myself organized at school holidays, and we've got family coming to visit as well. So I've taken a week off, but I'm back again. And I wanted to talk a bit about some of my experiences over the last sort of week or so in relation to travel budgets and when they go awry, as in they go over what you anticipated. Now, I'm a firm believer in having a fun fund, and for me, that's pretty much always travel related. It used to be photography equipment, but then I'd progressively bought all the camera and all the lenses and everything, and the tripods and the reflectors and all the stuff that I wanted. So I didn't really need to have a photography fund anymore, except now they've got these mirrorless cameras, which I'm eyeing off going, oh, I love that. But then I'd have to redo all my equipment, including the lenses, anyway, I'm not prepared to go into that headspace just yet because I don't really use it as much as I used to. Ever since, I had my daughter and you go on holidays and already carrying lots of stuff, the idea of hauling an SLR out and having the moment to get all my, the aperture and shutter speed going while I've got, a little one potentially falling off a cliff. So I literally now just get my phone out, click, and off we go. So it's changed things quite a bit. So travel is still a thing though that I love. My daughter loves it. And every year we go on a girls' trip with my mum and my daughter. It started a bit by accident, actually, when my daughter was 18 months old and my husband was traveling so much for work. And I thought, you know what? I feel like going away too. I don't go anywhere anymore, as you do when you've got, a toddler and so forth. So we started within Australia. So there were littler trips that we used to do. This year, though, we went all out because my mother turned 80 and her first language spoken was French. And so she has this real affinity to the French language, and traveling to France was a bit much. So we decided to go to New Caledonia. And my mum had been, she took a school group there, oh, more than 40 years ago. So, and she's been wanting to go back ever since, but we're sort of like, oh, that seems like a bit of a bigger, more extravagant girls trip. But this year is a milestone year, and I love celebrating life. And I thought, you know what, let's just do it. My mum's still very fit and healthy. And, while she can still and wants to still travel like that, let's do it. So I didn't look too much into the day-to-day kind of thing of Noumea. And so booked the trip, got the flights and the accommodation, and the, the flights. I actually went to a travel agent because I thought, oh, this is a tropical island, they might have like package deals. Well, they kind of did and kind of didn't, but whatever it was, the travel agent booked the airfares. And I ended up booking the accommodation because the accommodation that they were going to put us on was on this little island that we had to get a ferry for. And I was like, no, I just like to be able to walk out the door and go where I want. And my mum and my daughter were the same. And my daughter's main criteria was she wanted a swim up bar. And as an 8-year-old, she has very luxurious taste. Because she'd experienced a swim up bar. I had won a raffle prize back in 2019, which happened to be flights and accommodation up to Hamilton Island. Now I do tend to win things, but that's by far the biggest thing I've ever won. I even won a meat tray once, which is ironic because I'm vegetarian, so that was of no use to me whatsoever. um, but yeah, so the swim up bar, and there was only one other hotel I could find that I could definitively say they had a swim up bar. So that happened to be the Chateau Royal, which was right next to Le Méridien, and it was in that Ansevata area, which I've discovered how to pronounce that. So, quite impressed with my pronunciation. And it was in sort of a touristy water sports area. And I thought, oh, that just looks lovely. We're going to an island. Let's just do it. So booked all of that, and the travel agent, I don't know how this happened, but our return flight turned out to be business class, which again, my daughter has been going on and on about ever since she walked through the business class section of the airplane when we were traveling to Europe last year to see her grandfather. And she's just like, Mama, I want to travel business class everywhere. And I was like, great, you can become a child star and fund it all. Well, turns out she didn't really need to. She's somehow manifested at least one way a business class ticket. So that in itself was quite hilarious. And then we have a friend who has whose friend lived on Noumea for about 5 or 6 years. And so we caught up with him to hear a little bit about the local environment and so forth. And one of the first things he said is it's really expensive. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Well, and talking like at restaurants and stuff like that. So, well, we don't tend to eat out much. I made sure that the hotel had a kitchen, our hotel room, so that we could make food because breakfast, I just bowl of muesli, or some fruit or something like yogurt, like just something really simple. I don't particularly enjoy the big buffet breakfast, and you walk away feeling really full and heavy, and you don't really eat then till dinner. I just, yeah, that's not really my thing. So I was like, no, I'd like a kitchen, and we'll find a grocery store and da, da, da. Anyway, so we get there though. And I like to have some local cash, so made sure we had local francs. And the first, like, we got there late in the day on a Saturday. So we went to this little corner store that we'd pass in the shuttle on the way to from the airport to the hotel, but it didn't really have a whole lot of stuff, and it was kind of old looking things as well. So I was like, oh well, we'll just buy a couple of bits and pieces for breakfast the next morning, and then we'll make our way to the big Carrefour supermarket that I'd found on the bus route, and get the rest of the groceries. So we then went to a restaurant we'd passed again for pizza, because I was like, well, can't really find much else in this area at the moment, so we'll just have pizza. Well, the pizza was like $45 for one pizza, so my daughter and I shared one. And my mum has a bit more of a sweet tooth, so she had a sweet pizza, and that was only $20. It had apple on it, and it was actually quite nice. But I was like, right, okay. And then I'd ordered a glass of wine, which translated back into, it was like $25 for a glass of red wine. And it was the first night, so I was just like, okay, we'll splurge a bit on the first night. But then everywhere we went, everything was super duper expensive. So I got what he meant when he said it's really expensive. I kind of thought, oh, some things might be, but other things might not be. $12 for a head of lettuce in the supermarket. And I was just going, oh my gosh, this is a very lush tropical island. Don't they grow lettuces here? Anyway, just totally not prepared for it. Even like the bus tickets, every time we hopped on a bus, it was about $13 just for one. Didn't matter how far you went. So obviously, the further you went, the more value it was. But the closer sort of bus routes were, made it a bit more expensive. So we did walk a fair bit, and some places the public bus didn't go, so we had to walk anyway. And I wasn't even game to try a taxi. And I looked at hiring a car, but while we were there, they had protests over the fuel tax. So gas stations were closed, and I thought, I don't really want to be in this position where I want to drive around. I'm watching the gas needle, trying to find a gas station that's open, and then I've got to fill the car up when I return it. I just don't want that. This is like, we're here for a week. I just want to be chilled. I usually hire a car at places, and I don't get to sightsee much. So this way, I'm sitting on the bus. My mum's chatting away in French to anyone that'll talk to her, and they were really, really lovely, and friendly, the locals. And everyone, as you pass them, didn't matter what age group, what gender, what nationality. I mean, obviously, when I'm saying nationality, I mean like the local culture, the Canucks or the French, because there's a lot of French expats who live there. Retirees in particular, but also the youngsters too. So the whole hotel lobby staff were all young French nationals. And so everywhere you go, you're passing people like bonjour. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And then bonsoir. And then you learn when it turns from bonjour to bonsoir. It's I found it's around the 5 p.m. mark. So there's beautiful things that you learn when you're traveling. But financially, it was an interesting exercise, and also towards the end. So we actually had to change some extra Aussie dollars while we were there that we still had with us. But then towards the end, we're like, okay, we've got this much for bus fare, so we have to make sure that whatever we do, we have enough to get the bus back to the hotel on the last day, so we don't run out of cash for that. So it was quite an interesting exercise, which I haven't really experienced before. And I didn't really want to just chuck everything on credit card either, because you can't keep track of it as easily, and you end up like blowing the budget, and you get back and you're like, woo, look at the big credit card bill from this holiday. Oh my gosh. And I don't like that. I have done that in the past. And it's not pleasant, because you've had such a great holiday, and then a month later comes the bill, and it just puts a bit of a dampener on the memory of it. So, but there were things that we deliberately decided not to do, like a couple of boat trips. One was going to be like $600 for the three of us to go to see this lighthouse out in the distance. And I thought, well, you know what? The environment that I live in was so spoiled. We've got beautiful coastlines, we've got beautiful beaches, we have a boat, we go to islands, we have diving gear that we snorkel and dive, and we see turtles, we see dolphins, we see dugongs. Like I see all this stuff all the time. And I know it sounds very privileged, and it is. But so I didn't feel the need to spend a gazillion dollars to go see things like that when we could just sit and enjoy the beautiful views from the many bays that were around us, go for walks, hike up to the hill, which was behind our hotel, which my mum's not really much of a hiker. And not the fact, not it's not because she's almost 80, but because she's never been a hiker. She's like, if I can be driven somewhere, I would prefer that. But put her in a pool or in a swimming environment, off she goes. Like she's, we all have our things that we prefer. But we hiked. I didn't realize quite how much of a hike it was going to be up to the top of this hill. We then walked the roadside down because my mum was just like, "That's it. I'm not going back down the same way." I was like, "Okay, all right." And there was no other way to get down, so we had to walk some way or other. But yeah, so we did end up going to the supermarket, and we had our budget. We bought the groceries that we know we needed. So just, bit of basics. Like there was a really nice boulangerie, bakery, patisserie sort of next to the supermarket. And the baked goods were actually pretty well priced. So we would get a baguette for the equivalent of three Australian dollars, which was actually really good. My daughter fell in love with a little brioche bun, so she would get a brioche for breakfast and some muesli. And we got muesli that had some dried berries in it, but we ended up getting some frozen veggies because it was actually cheaper and a bit easier to cook them as well. And some frozen pizza, some spaghetti, actually seriously delicious spaghetti that was made in Numea. You wouldn't kind of associate Numea with that. But yeah, but things, and some pasta sauce. My mum had always carries Himalayan salt, so we didn't have to buy anything like that. And it was actually really nice. So we hung out, did our thing all day, came back to the room, made some dinner, which of course, by the end of all of that walking and exercise, my daughter's starving. And because the first night when we went to the restaurant, she was like literally about to like eat her napkin. She's like, "I'm so hungry." I was like, "Okay, all right, all right." So having your own resources to make food is actually quite good. And yeah, like I said, we still bought some baked things when we went to the markets. We bought a coconut, so you could like they open it up and they put a straw in it, and you can drink the coconut water out of it. And I'd done the same thing in Thailand, and my daughter, mind you, was over $10 for this coconut, but nevertheless, and she got to experience that, which was really nice. And then the marketplace, and we tried her favorite vegetable there. Her favorite vegetable is carrots, and so she tried a carrot, decided that not very nice. Well, she didn't like them as much, but we tried a carrot. Like there's things like that you still do. And I'm pretty much wearing all of the souvenirs that I bought. I bought a t-shirt, a necklace, and some earrings. So it wasn't, we weren't scrimping and saving to that degree, but we were very discerning in terms of what we then actually spent our money on. I preferred to spend it on places to go and things to see rather than expensive restaurants where you're not necessarily sure about if the food's particularly good. And I definitely look at Google reviews. And so one of the main areas where there's just basically just it's like the Bay of Lemon Bay, and it's just a series of restaurants, one after the other. And we actually went to a Vietnamese place there. I had like the best stir fry noodles with veggies ever had. Even my daughter ate a lot of the veggies. But I think we got lucky because when I looked at the reviews of a lot of the other restaurants along there, they were not great, especially more like the burgery places. And I also really wanted to try some more local food as well, something a bit more sort of cultural to the area. And of course, being a tropical island, it's a lot of fish. My mother's vegetarian, like full veggie. I still do eat a bit of fish. And my daughter, she will eat fish. It's cooked. Whereas a lot of the fish they had there was raw. So there was a lot of French tartare, which is the raw meat. And then the Canuck food was raw fish. And I was like, oh my goodness, we need to find some cooked food to suit everybody. So that also made it easier just to eat in our room as well. On the last night we did go out too, but I guess the message here is do a bit of research about what's around you when you're traveling somewhere. And I'm always a supermarket goer. I actually love supermarkets in foreign countries because they just have different stuff, and I like to try their local chocolate, or their local produce or whatever it happens to be that's there. It's just the juice. We had strawberry juice which we don't have that in Australia. So strawberry juice was really fun. I was going, oh, this is exciting. So we had strawberry juice for breakfast, with breakfast every morning. And we probably wouldn't have got that if we got to a restaurant. So yeah, so it's fun to do, and I love shopping at supermarkets. So I guess the main takeaway here is do a little bit of research about the cost of things wherever you're going. Find a supermarket that's nearby and its opening hours, and then just see if you can organize an accommodation that has some sort of kitchen facilities. Ours had a stovetop, so we between the three of us, we went through like 30 eggs in the week between, scrambled eggs I made for breakfast, or hard boiled eggs that my daughter would have, or we'd have as a snack with on the go, or with breakfast or with dinner. Like it was probably a bit insane how many eggs we actually did end up eating. But yeah, it was the ability to cook them was really handy. And we'd got some frozen pizza, and there was a microwave kind of convection oven sort of combo. So it wasn't like the best cooked pizza in the world, but it was fine. And then yeah, it just makes it so much easier, and a good fridge and freezer obviously as well, which is not as uncommon these days as it used to be. I still remember years ago going to Las Vegas, and the hotel room did not, it was a five-star hotel, but it didn't have a fridge. The only way they would provide a fridge is if you had medication that required refrigeration. And we actually had probiotics with us. So we're like, yes, we have medication that needs refrigeration. So they put a fridge in our room. I was like, that at no extra cost, which was good. And I was like, oh, cool. All right. Well, you don't ask, you don't know. But no, it's really good fun. And then prioritize what it is that you really want to do. If we had been there maybe a little bit longer, I probably would have gone to the effort of hiring a car, just to go a bit further afield and see some of the culture outside of the sort of the New Mayor area, which is very, very French. But to see some of that more Melanesian culture, we saw a little bit of it by the people that we spoke to, and then we went to a cultural center, but it wasn't as readily available as I was sort of hoping it would be. So yeah, so it's good fun. And traveling, it broadens your horizons. You get creative. You get really clear on what it is that you want to do as well. And it's great for kids too. Like my daughter just got so much out of it, and she's speaking a little bit more French now, just more like your hellos and goodbyes and how are you and all of that. So it makes foreign languages a bit more relevant when they hear how many other people speak them. Because obviously here she's predominantly exposed to English and a little bit of German, but she certainly doesn't get much French, except from my mum. So yeah, so if you haven't already got a fun fund, I would recommend starting one and make sure you use it. Fun is extremely important. And when you do book a holiday, because again, they're great to have. It's important to have something to look forward to. Watch your budget and see what it is that you really want to do, and try and do a bit of as much upfront research as you can. And obviously you want to be spontaneous when you're there too. But if there's some things that you really want to do and you want to budget for it, make sure you got the money for it, so it doesn't surprise you when you get back and you get a credit card bill that you weren't expecting. So with that, I'll leave you to daydream about travel and enjoy the rest of your day.